Welcome to Beyond the Game, More Stories, the podcast where we explore the lessons that sports teach us about life, leadership, adversity, and growth long after the final whistle blows. I'm your host, Dwayne Lightford Jr. On this show, we sit down with athletes, coaches, parents, and leaders just to have real conversations about the moments that shape us, the different challenges, the victories, the big ones, the small ones, the setbacks, and the experiences that stay with us long after the final scoreboard goes dark. All right, well, let's jump into today's episode. On this week's episode, we sit down with one of the bright minds in college football today, someone whose journey through the game has been built on the experiences, growth, and a deep understanding of what it takes to lead. A native of Chicago, Illinois, our guest built his foundation in the game as a linebacker at Northern Illinois University under Coach Joe Novak. During his time there, he was part of a program that made national noise, defeating programs like Maryland, Alabama, and Iowa State during the 2003 season that saw the Huskies climb into the top 10 and finish with a 10-2 record. His playing career was marked by consistency and winning, helping the Huskies to multiple MAC West championships and a Silicon Valley Bowl victory, the groundwork for a future to be built in the game. But when his playing days came to an end, his journey didn't stop. It evolved. He transitioned from the field to the sideline, beginning a coaching career that would take him across multiple programs and roles, each one adding to his perspective and shaping his approach to leadership. From working as the defensive backs coach and special teams coordinator at Bethel University, to developing players as linebackers coach at Georgia Military College, to spending time building defensive units at Alabama A&M. He continued to grow, taking on leadership roles as a defensive coordinator and linebackers coach at Elizabeth City State, and further expanding his impact at Prairie View A&M as a special teams coordinator and defensive line coach. So every stop, every role, every group of players, just adding to the coach that he is today. So now stepping into the role as head coach at Fort Valley State University, he's bringing that full journey with him, focusing on building a culture, developing young men, and creating something that goes far beyond the game itself. So joining us today, please welcome head football coach Marlon Watson to the podcast. Welcome, Marlon. How are we doing today, sir?
I appreciate it, Dwayne. And I always corrected this one time. It is Marlon, but
Marlon.
yeah, no, you're good, man. You know, everybody says Marlon, and besides my mama and my wife, but it is Marlon. Everybody in U.S. says Marlon, but if any other country, they'll say Marlon. So you're good, man.
All right. Well, let's circle back. So you and I, that's for those who, for the audience, Marlon and I, we met back in 2000, right?
Mhm.
We actually both attended Butler University, and if I'm correct, we were actually next door neighbors in the dorm. It may have been 2 rooms down, but
Yeah,
I think we shared a wall, and I think your roommate's name was Joe.
Joe
And I
Thompson.
remember just walking out in the hallway again. Here we are, and Joe played baseball too. So you had a basketball player, football player, and baseball player all in the
Mhm.
same hallway. We're in the freshman dorm, just living it life. We got music blaring, everything. Everybody's doors open, and man, just thinking back to those days, man, it just kind of shows just kind of how everything has come full circle, man. Again, we met almost a quarter of a century ago, and here we are now today, catching up again, man. So I appreciate you doing this. And just was like I said, want to learn a little bit more about what I missed out on since you left Butler, man. So
Mhm. I don't know if you remember this, man, but they used to always pull the fire alarm.
at night, yeah, it 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I
Yeah.
never understood why, but it was hard. Yeah,
Yes,
but
sir.
that
Yes, sir, man.
ultimately, go ahead.
No, no, I was like, man, I'm glad you're having me on here, man, and definitely opportunity to talk to you and catch up with you and talk to you a little bit.
Yeah, man. I think the pulling of the fire alarm again, it was never us. So let's just get that
Mhm.
out of the way. But I think that's just part of the experience, man.
Mhm.
Somebody every couple of weeks or so, we need one of them 2, 3 o'clock fire alarms where everybody's got to clear the building. I will be
Mhm.
honest with you though. There was one morning where I did not go outside. And it was in December
Okay, yeah,
because it
I
was
feel you, man. I feel you.
yeah. But I did go out yeah, I did go out there a bunch though, man. But I do remember
Mhm.
one time I was just like, man, I looked out my window. We had them three tall windows. I looked out them and I said, man,
Yep.
there's snow on the ground. I ain't going out there today. I know what it is. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. This ain't real.
Hmm.
But most of the times it was somebody burning popcorn or somebody had a George Foreman grill in the dorm room. So
I think it was just the upperclassmen coming in from partying, and we want to wake up the freshmen, and we'll pull
yeah,
that alarm and had to get
yeah.
up.
But I will say I had the opportunity to go to Resco from the beginning, but
Ooh.
I wanted that experience, man. I wanted to be
Hmm.
in the freshman dorm. And we didn't have AC. But we were the only dorm that didn't have AC on campus. The girls' dorm did, Resco did, but for me, man, I wanted to be around people my age, because I'm first time away from home, that was big to me to have that experience in there.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely, man. I totally agree, man. And I just remember like the songs, Nelly was hot back
hmm
then.
yeah.
What else was out? I just remember Nelly, I did like, mommy, yeah, yeah. Oh,
That country grammar album. I don't know
yeah,
if
that
you
country grammar
remember.
album. That's the name of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Nathan Bloom was our RA. I don't know if you
I do
remember him.
not
So he
know.
was like, we were on that outside wall that faced we had a wall that went to the outside.
Hmm.
But if you go down our hallway and you can make that left to go to the front desk, his room was right there. But
Okay.
one day I don't know if you remember, one day we were in the hallway and and everybody had their doors open playing music. I had got a brand new speaker system and
Okay.
I got a call from the front desk. You know how far our room was from the front desk. My music was so loud that day, they called me from the front desk and told me that they could hear my music. So,
Wow.
that those days, man, again, I I enjoyed
2000, man. Year
2000, man.
2000. I remember my parents sending me away with the calling cards that you
Mm-hmm.
actually had to put the pin in just to
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
Man, it seems such a long time ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Do you remember we could use the school's long distance.
Right.
You had to put that personal code in that they would tie to
Hmm.
your account.
Yeah.
I ran up a bill once because it was like maybe like 20 cents a minute. I
Hmm.
ran up a bill because again, because I'm there over Christmas break.
Hmm.
I ran up a bill. It was probably about $45 in
Yeah.
one day. One day.
Hmm. That was
So
before the anytime minute started after
yeah,
8 or whatever it was.
yeah, nights and weekends.
Nights and
Yeah,
weekends.
nights and weekends. So yeah, so all right.
Absolutely.
And I know again, we could sit here and talk about them days,
Hmm.
forever. But I know you're busy, so again, I appreciate you doing this, and so we can go ahead and hop into everything. So,
Hmm.
I know we kind of talked a little bit offline about kind of what the project here is and everything.
Hmm.
As I kind of look at this, before we get into all the different accomplishments that you had as a player, as a coach, and just everything that people see on the surface, I always like to start my podcast with the guest at the very beginning because in this podcast is more about the person, not just the athlete or the
Hmm.
coach. So if we were to set the table for everyone listening, if someone who only knows you from those, from the bio I read or from looking up online or somebody, at Fort Valley State where you're at now, one of your other stops, if that's all they know you from, what's something that they don't know about your journey that it took to help you get where you're at today?
Man, I would say mentorship. I think in this life, we try to do everything ourselves, or we think we need to do everything ourselves. Go out and be the number one basketball player or the number one coach without the people just around us. But we don't necessarily go to mentors that have already done it. And not just, coaching, but, coaches need coaching mentors. And I think that's one thing that I try to do a good job of going out there and seeking help. As a young black man, I talk to my players about this all the time. It's okay to ask for help in whatever area that may be. That may be classes, that may be life, that may be just anything that you can go and ask for help for.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, a thing to start off with and to say, because, like you said, so in some instances, asking for help is considered a weakness,
Hmm.
and it's not. Knowing that you are somebody who can't it, let's go back to our dorm, our freshman dorm, right? You need help moving all your furniture around your room.
Hmm.
It's no harm in asking for help if you need help studying for a test or
Yep.
anything along those lines.
Hmm.
Because again, in life, this life is not designed to be easy for us.
Yeah.
And especially if you have that mentor, somebody who's been there before, you're getting real advice from somebody who walked in those shoes that you're
Hmm.
trying to walk through right now. And whether
Yes.
it's somebody who's been successful or somebody who was not as successful in that thing, they can tell you things that worked, things that didn't work. And I think, like you said, having that mentor is a really great advice, and it's something that I think everybody needs. I had one when it came through my basketball. I have one in the professional world, the different people, and that is how you build your foundation. You always have somebody to look back on, look forward to get that help that you need. So very good advice, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, all right. So football recruiting, yeah, I think it can look a lot different than basketball, right? So, especially at a place like Butler, we both ended up at Butler. Football back then didn't really offer like the athletic scholarships and everything that they did on the basketball side. And I do remember they took the scholarships away. I want to say the full scholarships away the year before I got there. So our freshman year, I really remember y'all had Dwayne Ewing as y'all's quarterback,
Yeah.
and y'all, I want to say y'all were first or second in the nation in y'all's class in offense. And I remember a game y'all played at Georgetown where y'all was like 56-57 was the final score. It was like the number one rated offense, and the defense was still growing and learning, but you guys were basically starting over. Can you walk me a little bit through like how your recruitment process went, both there and even when you left and went to NIU, just like how you ended up at Butler and then ultimately ended up landing at NIU?
So absolutely. And throughout high school, we moved out to the suburbs right before I went to the high school. My mom got robbed at gunpoint. Our house got shot up, and so my parents did the only thing they could, moved us out to the suburbs, and so that was one of the things that that shaped my life. But at the school, I ended up going to Romeoville High School, where in that time, I thought I was a really good athlete. I didn't get as many offers as I thought I should, like many young men and women. And, I was chasing that D1 dream. And so Butler came along, and I was being recruited by NIU at one point by Coach Mallory, and I think Coach Mallory ended up leaving, taking another job, and I don't know what happened after that. Coach Moresco at Butler ended up talking to me, I think, through Coach Mallory. And so again, it was D1. I had D1 dreams. Ended up going to Butler. I did get an academic scholarship to Butler because I didn't know at that time, academic versus athletic and all that stuff. I was just chasing that D1. And so I went there, and Coach Moresco and I, who actually I still talk to from time to time, um, got me there. And then it was just, again, a whole new experience. Going from Chicago to Indianapolis, I thought it was going to be the same. As you know, being at Butler is just a little bit different. Um, you know, I had, growing up in Chicago, I grew around mostly African Americans, and then going to the suburbs, it's predominantly white, but I still was around the black community a lot. All my friends were, African American and things like that. So that's what I was used to. So when I get to Butler, it's just a whole new exposure. And I think you're from Louisville, and so that was something else. All right, you play basketball, I play football. We both black, and they weren't that many of us there. Thinking about it, especially on the football team. But that got me there, and I had fun while I was there, just not the place where I felt like I fit in. So going back to my idea of transferring, I actually transferred after that semester, after one semester, and I took a shot on myself. I knew I could play, and again, Northern was a team that was recruiting me, and so I ended up walking on at NIU. I went there, saying, "Skip it, I'm gonna walk on," and then I ended up earning a scholarship after a year or two there. So Um, One of the best decisions that I ever made. We talk about the transfer portal now and things like that. Of course, I believe, hey, you can transfer one time, but right now, you got guys that transferring 3, 4, 5, 6 times. That's not. I don't think you should do that. Because again, you talk about starting over. Starting over at Northern, I don't think it was hard for me. Because again, I bet on myself. I believed in myself. I believed that I was a good enough athlete to play Division I football. And again, you got guys at NIU who were passed up by the teams in the Big Ten. Your University of Illinois, your Michigan, your Michigan State is Big Ten country, and so all of us there had a chip on our shoulders, and that's where we were able to win a lot of those games where we felt like we could play with the quote unquote big boys. And that's what we did, along with a really good coaching staff, with some coaching legends, starting with Coach Novak. But at the time we had Coach Narduzzi, who's the head coach at Pitt right now. We had Coach Scott Schaefer, who was the head coach at at Syracuse at one point. A long history. And a lot of others who are head coaches right now. Sam Pittman, who was at Arkansas, and I can name a bunch of them. That we were being coached by in their younger days of coaching. And so to have that, and to learn from that, has definitely helped out my career right now, not only on the recruiting trail, but the head coaching trail.
Yeah. So, yeah, you mentioned. I want to say the number was right around 150 blacks at Butler.
Wow. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's very low, and like you said, just kind of seeing somebody who looked like me again. It was
Hmm.
that culture shock. We're first
Hmm.
time away from home, and again, we're now the high minority
Hmm.
of what's at the campus. Now, I don't. Do you remember a guy named Jason Harris?
A
He was a
little bit. The
freshman.
name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was a freshman football player. He was actually from Louisville. I actually knew him in high school,
Okay.
but he left the same day you left. So that was another one of them. Another one of us gone. So, but so now if you look at it, I know you were saying you kind of felt like you knew you could play, right, and you felt
Mhm.
like you should be getting more looks. That is a feeling that I know a lot of athletes have. I know there's
Mhm.
thousands of athletes sitting at home right now going through the high school process with that same feeling, like I feel like I should be getting more looks. What is something that you were able to use to help you get through that process when you weren't getting the looks that you wanted, so that way you didn't just give up? And what kept you going?
Back then I didn't really understand the recruiting process, like I do now, and some of these athletes don't necessarily understand it. But it was more for me. Again, I go back to believing in myself. It wasn't anything that I didn't think I couldn't do at that point. In high school, I played football, basketball, and track. You didn't know I played basketball. It's actually my first love. I could
Mm,
have went out to Butler and did a couple of them and put and broke my ankle or something. But basketball was my first love, so I played basketball, played football, and ran track. So I was a three-sport athlete. So I knew I was very athletic. I just back then I didn't take it as seriously as I do now or did in college. And I think that's the difference. These athletes these days know a little bit more than we did. And so when you talk about an athlete betting on themselves and going places, it's a whole different world because of other reasons. Not necessarily having to do specifically with the athlete. It's just the world of college football. We talk about that transfer portal. These young men and women are getting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years to play college football, and that goes against the recruiting and just the money aspect of everything. I think a lot of these young athletes are chasing money instead of chasing their dream of playing collegiate football. They
mm.
rather get paid than actually play the game that they love. And so back then, again, just knowing and understanding what I was capable of, my belief in God, and just I know I can do it. I know I'm better than him, and him.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I like to say is that the power of a positive mindset and just that
Mhm.
ultimate belief in yourself. Because like you said, in that situation, you're betting on yourself. You got people telling you you got people telling you over here that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then you got
Hmm.
people over here saying the exact opposite. But you understand, you come into that situation of going from a high school athlete to college athlete, and
Hmm.
now, yeah, you were the best linebacker on your team, but now you're in the linebackers meeting with everybody who
Hmm.
was the best linebacker on their team.
Yep.
And now here you go, like you said, the transfer portal is not what it is today, what it was back then, but now you come into a brand new locker room,
Hmm.
and now you're not only are you in there with everybody who was the best linebacker, but now you're the new guy again. And that's something that I say is that positive mindset and just overall belief in betting on yourself, just ultimately believing in and trusting your own personal journey is a huge thing that I think a lot of kids need to have, and it's living what I call living in the reality of the situation right now.
Hmm.
You got to understand, this is my road. My road may not look like his. My road may not look like what I see on TV or what I see on social media. I've got
Hmm.
to be able to be confident in who I am and in my skin.
Absolutely. And even when I went to Northern Illinois, I wasn't a star player. I was a role player. I played a lot of special teams. And when my number was called, I went out there and did my job. But, I tell the guys now, I never started one game at linebacker while I was at Northern Illinois University. It was always mostly on special teams. And then, you get the cleanup work here and there.
Mhm.
So, but I'm very proud of the role that I did have there. And, I was treated no better or no less than anyone else. And so that was a family that brought you in. There was no exclusivity once you got there. You were a part or you were a Husky. And so I think they did a great job of that. And then they still do a great job of that.
Yeah, and I was talking with a coach at the University of Florida, and just kind of what you said reminded me of the conversation I had with him. We talked about the concept of being a star in your role. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, your role at sometimes was to come in on the special teams. You came in and you're gonna do the best job you can, and that's how you get opportunities to do other things. And I deal with athletes and a lot of kids nowadays where they'll sit there and if they don't get the playing time that they feel they deserve, they'll shut down, or they'll
Mm-hmm.
get in the game and they'll play, and I'll see him after the game. And I'm like, well, how was your game? He's like, oh, the game didn't go that well. I said, well, what happened? I said, well, did y'all win? Yeah, we won, but I didn't play that well. Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean? He said, "Oh, my shots weren't falling." And to give it to your relate to football, you'd be like, "Oh, I missed a couple of blocks." But
Mm-hmm.
there's other things that you can do. That block that you missed may take you 2 seconds, but you may
Mm-hmm.
play 50 snaps. So you're going to tell me because you missed this 2 seconds, it removes the other 49 snaps, or if the basketball thing where you're telling me that you went 2 for 10, but those 10 shots took you 50 seconds, but you played for 20 minutes. So that whole
Yeah.
50 seconds, and again, that goes back to the believing in yourself, man. It just
Mm-hmm.
can't be about that instant gratification. It can't be, I'm doing this for likes and social media views. You got to understand that bigger picture of, like we said, being a star in your role. If this is your role, accept it. And if you want a bigger opportunity, you're not going to get it if you're not doing the best you can at the opportunity that you have. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, alrighty. So, tell me this now. So, during your time at NIU, I know we kind of talked about that 2003 season was special. And you were a part of that team, and y'all made national noise. Like I said, mention some of the teams that y'all ended up beating. We never got there on the basketball side, but you guys climbed into the top 10. I remember looking back at in basketball, they put the rankings out every Monday. I remember looking at there and just trying to see that little bitty number next to the word Butler, and just getting it just kind of, as small a number as you can get there. But so we'll back it up. A lot of people had never heard of Northern at that point in time, right? So here you guys go making it. And I remember it. I remember seeing y'all on TV pulling those upsets. So a lot of people looked at it same way with Butler. They didn't expect us to do some of the things we did.
Yep.
But in that locker room, you guys have that confidence. You guys know that you can play with these guys. Like you said, you
Mm-hmm.
believe in yourself. As a team, y'all believed in each other. So just what did that experience teach you about just having confidence, and what can happen if a team stops listening to all the outside noise and believes in something bigger than just the expectations that people have for them?
Yeah, I would say back then that year, and we truly didn't know who a lot of those teams were. They were just a team on the schedule, because our coaches taught us a lot about it's about us, nobody else. So, now that I look back at it, dang, we beat Alabama. I didn't know how good Alabama was back then or the history behind it. It was the next game on our schedule, and that's who we were playing. And again, I talked about a little bit about a lot of us had that underdog mentality anyway. And our coaches did a great job of setting us up for success. We listened to our coaches and we tried to our best of our ability to go out there and execute that game plan. And I think that's huge because you see a lot of players these days that want to stick out, want to make the show about them. It was all about team for us back then, and not saying that we did everything correct or anything like that, but at that time, man, we were rolling. We believed in each other. We believed in ourselves. I mean, we did a lot of things together, from going to practice to weightlifting to sleeping on couches. I slept on the couch before I got my scholarship, or on the floor, really. But that was fun times. That's how you grew as a team in that summertime. And just going out and eating together and partying together and things like that. We had each other's backs, and we knew it. And so you see these upsets now. The 2 years ago, when my teammate Thomas Hammock was the head coach, they upset Notre Dame. If you went to Northern Illinois, that wasn't an upset. That's expected. And I think a lot of Northern Illinois alumni and Chicago area people, and especially if you play football for NRU, that is an expected journey. Back then when they went to the Orange Bowl, that was expected. You're going to always have that underdog story there, and I think that's something that shaped my coaching career now. That when you're not expected to do something and you do it, it goes back to you have that full confidence on yourself, and you're betting on yourself to do these things that no one has ever taught you to do. And it's that positive self-talk. It's that I know I can do it. If they've done it, I know I can do it.
Yeah, and that's something that reminds me of when Butler made that run in the tournament. After the first game, we didn't celebrate
No.
right away. We went and got to the handshake line because I had one teammate saying, "Hey, act like you've been here before. We expected to win this." And I know that's how you're teaching the guys you got now and the guys you've been. It doesn't matter about, we're not playing for the name on the back of the jersey, playing for the name on the front of the jersey. And this name on the front of the jersey belongs on this field or on this court or on this track or whatever the sport is with anybody in this country. We all put our pants and pads and shorts on one leg at a time. And I know that's something that they instilled in us as a little kid. He puts his pants on one leg at a time too. So that confidence and that opportunity that a lot of kids that don't understand exactly how much work these games are, right? You talked about the summer work, realize that players aren't made during the season. Players are made in that off season, So football, school may start, especially at the college level, school may start middle of August. Y'all are there in July. Y'all are there, like I said, sleeping in the upperclassmen's apartments, or because there's no cafeteria open at school, so you got to figure out how to get food and get around, back and forth and everything. It's all the behind the scenes stuff that people don't understand of just how much of a full-time job it is to be a college student athlete.
I remember working at Blockbuster Video, man, in college, just trying to make ends meet, just trying to, like I said, I talked about sleeping on my roommate's couch and floor. That same roommate helped me get my first coaching job, well, my first two coaching jobs, actually. And so you never know how those relationships that you're going to build at those times are going to help you out later on in life. And I thank him every single day. And we joke about that, and he always say, "You owe me." So the first thing when I got a head coaching job here, I called him, was like, "Hey, I'm offering you my defensive coordinator position." And I understood he was going to turn it down because he's at a higher level now. But I always told him, "Hey, my first head coaching job, I'm going to call you first and offer you this job." But, and I did that. But those are relationships that you built with teammates like that, man. That bond is strong, and it'll forever be.
Yeah, and that is exactly what I would say myself, because just and nowadays it's not necessarily about who's the best person out there, who has the best highlights, because your highlights can be as good as ever if you can't get them in front of the right people. So it has become a relationship game now. So you always want to make sure that you don't burn those bridges and that you make as many connections as you can, and that's why I like this form of podcast that I'm doing, because again, and you've kind of aged us by mentioning Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Um, but it gives me an opportunity to catch up with people from the past, just
Mhm.
kind of rebuild some of those relationships, but also get to make new relationships with people and just get to kind of learn and understand. Because I've been out of the game for 20, a lot again, not going to age myself, a lot of years, right?
Mhm.
So kind of learn about how it's going in now because I've got two kids coming up through this system, in the next
Mhm.
6, 7 years as
Mhm.
well. So I want to know what the best road to put them on and everything. And like I said, those relationships come in handy. Helped you get a job. It may help me get my kids, to the
Mhm.
right high school or to the right
Yep.
college and what have you. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely understand that. So, well, and we kind of hit on this. We talked about with football, you're there early over the summer and everything, but just ultimately as a student athlete, the demand on the kid is huge. You got classes, you got practice, you got trainings, you got study hall, study sessions, travel, everything along those lines. How do you guide your players in learning just how to manage their time and overall stay on top of all of those responsibilities that they have?
We talk about time management, but I always tell them, I'm not asking you to do anything that I haven't done. I'm not going to put anything on you that I didn't do personally myself. You talk about having a two kids that are going through the recruiting process and the college process. Here in a few years, my own son is a freshman in college right now, and so I've seen it from multiple sides. And so I can definitely talk to him about, hey, these are the expectations. This is a playbook. And I talk to the players about it. There's a playbook to winning, and as closely as you follow this playbook, the better you're going to be. But life has circumstances. We talk about in this world today the mental health, the things like that kind of detour these young men and women these days from following that playbook play by play. It's a little bit harder because they're dealing with some of the things that we didn't necessarily have to deal with or we didn't talk about. We still dealt with them, but it wasn't as widely recognized back then. You got a concussion back then, it was just like you got a stinger, sit out of play, get some water, go back in. And now, with those types of things, you're out a week, you're out 2 weeks. They're testing you every single day, and so I think there are a lot more challenges now than there were before. Just because, again, we want our young men and women to be a little bit better than we were, and so we're treating them a little bit softer. And again, it's all our fault, but going back to the coaching styles and things like that, it worked for us, so it should be able to work for them. This day and age, especially with the technology being the way it is now, and so it should be easier. But they're dealing with, I think, a lot more stuff than we had to, with cell phones, with pictures, and just the stress of life with that new technology, putting their information out there, social media, trying to compare themselves to someone else across the country. Hey, you only knew your neighbor in college and the people that were at the university. Now they're looking at people at UCLA trying to fit in that box from that player at UCLA. Why are they getting this? Why we're not getting it? Things like that. And so I think you try to teach the players the best they can, but you also have to tailor it to what they're going through in 2026 rather than back in 26 years ago, because we know the world has changed, since we were in college. You got 9/11, you got wars, you got all this stuff. And so they're more aware of what's going on, and they're smarter, but yet at the same time, they're not as smart with the life thing.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, and I think back to that 9/11 experience because you talked about just having access to everything, and I'm a kid
Mm-hmm.
in Kentucky, you're a kid in Illinois, we
Mm-hmm.
both have this same dream of playing our sport at the next level. I never know how hard you're working, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I can see the guys in my area, but nowadays, like you said, these kids are looking and they're seeing every workout that the top 50 players are doing. The players are posting the trend. So now you like you said, they have a different playbook than what
Mm-hmm.
we had, So us, it was just I don't know how hard anybody's working, so I got to work harder.
Right.
Nowadays, like, and what really I really struggle with is we are of the generation where we got yelled at. We ran all the time.
Hmm.
and now this next generation, they don't want that. But the person in the background telling them that they don't want that is their parent. And that
Hmm.
parent is our generation.
Yep.
We are the same generation that dealt with that. And I guess a lot of them are just like, I didn't like it, so I don't want it exposed to my kid.
Correct.
But I looked at it and I'm like, man, that coach held me accountable
Hmm.
because you look again, you're coaching at the college level, the food on your table for your wife and your kids depends on how well these kids perform.
Hmm.
It's not I can't sit here and be your friend. I've got to get the most out of you because now
Hmm.
my job is on the line. And so I can't always be your friend. I may have an assistant coach over here who's the cleanup guy, right? So I'm the mean guy, he's nice cop. Right. You
Hmm.
may get that, but I it's just weird to see that we are the generation that is stopping our kids from having that same experience that we have, and it's building kids that can't be yelled at. But like you said, it also has to do with the intervention of social media. They're seeing everything and bullying that's going on the internet and all of
Hmm.
that stuff. So it's just a crazy world that these kids live in. And like you said, we as this generation, as the ones who have done it, we just have to share these kinds of stories and best help them as we can and be willing to help.
Yeah, it's all about relationship,
Oh yeah.
and we talk about that on different avenues. But I always say rules without relationship is going to equal rebellion. So you can have that relationship with them, a great relationship with them, and they rebel and do something wrong. Now you can have access to scream at them and talk to them, not any type of way that you want, but they're more receptive of you telling them and you screaming at them and you making them run or whatever the consequence is, and now they're more open to it. I I used to always remember my mom whooping me when I was younger, but after she whooped me, she sat me down on her lap, she cuddled me and told me why she had to whoop me, and the reason why. I mean, and that she loved me, and so that was huge for me. Hey, I'm gonna make you run because you were late, but I'm gonna still tell you I love you,
Yeah.
and I'm doing it because I do love you.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, it's just a different day and age, and I think
Mm.
we're navigating it as best we can, and just kind of learning, learning on the fly. But again, I see it. I see what everybody's doing, and I was talking with another coach, and kind of what you said, it kind of made me remember what he said. He said the first thing you have to do is show the kid that you care,
Hmm.
right? And then once they see that you care, that kind of opens up that avenue, like you're saying,
Hmm.
because once they see that you care, they'll respect you, and then they'll respond to you.
So, and I think it's a little bit different in that when we were younger, we had somebody that told us they cared and they showed us that one time and we believed them. Now these kids need reassurance every single day that you care. They're
Hmm.
not okay. You showed you cared on Tuesday and Wednesday, but Thursday, if you don't care on Thursday, now you're starting back on square one. So that consistency has to be there every single day. Your personality, everything has to be the same every single day, or they're gonna look at you crazy and like, hey, he's not really the way he is because they are watching everything that we do. And just I tell my players and even my son and my kids, I'm not perfect. But as a kid growing up, especially in grade school, high school, even in college now, you think the adults have it figured out. You think the adults know everything and they're supposed to know everything. I tell them I'm trying to figure it out on a lot of things just as much as you are.
Hmm.
And I think once I've gotten older, we realized that our parents did the best job that they could with us. They
Hmm.
weren't perfect. You look back
Right.
like, man, mama did that, or daddy did this. Woo! But then you get older and then you got to go through that same situation. You realize, oh man, I understand why they did what they did at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. All righty. So, all right. So you've experienced this game from a couple different perspectives, right? You've been
Mm-hmm.
a player, you've been an assistant coach in different coaching positions, and
Mm-hmm.
now you're leading from the top. All right. So as you've kind of moved up that sideline, what life lessons have you been able to carry with you that now have a different meaning than they did before? Now that you're a head coach.
I think accountability and just preparation are the two key ones. I mean, it's very hard these days for these young men and women to hold themselves accountable. I know there are jokes all the time on social media about women holding themselves accountable to things, but it's a real thing. Yeah, admitting that you're wrong, admitting that you're not perfect, admitting that you can do better, waking up in the morning when you're supposed to wake up in the morning, doing that hard thing consistently, because that wrong thing is always going to be easy. So I think the more accountable you are, the better, and that's something that I think I've been successful throughout my career. And we just talk about preparation. You know, as a player, I probably didn't prepare the way I needed to. As I think back, but you see that the guys that are elite athletes, the men and women, they're great preparers. They prepare very well, whether that's mentally, physically, and emotionally. And so when I was a high school coach and I wanted to be a collegiate coach, I thought about it in that aspect. When I became a collegiate coach, as far as a graduate assistant, I prepared like I was a position coach. When I was a position coach, I prepared like I was a coordinator. As a coordinator, I tried to prepare like a head coach. And so, did I always get it right? No. But in the back of my mind, I was always preparing for that next step. So, I'm here at Fort Valley now, my first head coaching position. You know, I'm learning those lessons now of, hey, if I get the opportunity and God gives me the opportunity to move on to a bigger program, now I'm prepared to take the lessons that I learned here and all throughout my coaching career and even playing career, and take that to the next step, as well as that mentorship that I talked about earlier.
Yeah, and I think that that brings up a very important point. Is I think I told you I'm kind of helping out at a high school level, but I also
Mm-hmm.
work with seventh and eighth grade AAU.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that, especially with my high school kids, that I kind of talk to them about is just like you said, that preparation for what's next, right? It's the head coach's second year coming into the team, my first year on with the team,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still fighting that battle of effort and energy. Bringing the best that you can into practice every day. And that's something that I feel no coach should ever have to teach you. There's no drill that you can do to teach you effort and heart and all of that stuff. But that just understanding that concept of preparing for what's next. I'm not practicing for these guys that I'm playing with. I'm practicing to get to that next level. So my
Mm-hmm.
effort and preparation, like you said, needs to be what is going to be expected at that next level.
Yeah.
There's a sophomore walking around a high school campus right now that in 2 years is going to be there at Fort Valley State with you. But there's also a freshman walking around your campus right now that sophomore is going to have to be competing with for playing time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not going to start preparing to work at that level, you're going to be behind. That freshman at Fort Valley right now has 3 years experience on you, and he or she is playing their sport at that high level every day. They're giving everything they have, and you're at the high school level. You're coasting because, for whatever reason, just don't want to give everything that you have to get
Mm-hmm.
to where it is you want to go. My effort doesn't need to match what level I'm playing at. It
Mm-hmm.
needs to match what level I want to get to.
Yeah. And you have a lot of young men and women and even adults that are comfortable with being mediocre.
Hmm.
And I give an example. My brother, who's been selling cars for years, and he told me when he was a sales manager, the goal for the month was 7 cars. Now, these salesmen would sell 7 cars in 2 weeks and make their money. I'm just okay with making my money. Now I can pay all my bills and survive for that month. But they got another 2 weeks where they could have sold another 7 cars, but they were just comfortable with selling those 7 cars and didn't want to do anything else for the rest of the month. It's like, hey, I'm selling 14 and now I'm ahead. These young men and women, and again, I talk about, some of these adults also do that. You have your elite athletes now, or the elite professionals that are at the top of their game in whatever industry we talk about, are willing to do more. They're not comfortable being comfortable, and that's how they become elite. It's not a secret. It's not. I don't think we talk about work ethic and things like that, but I think consistency and just demanding more of yourself can put you in that elite category. You don't always have to be the most talented person out there, but that work ethic and wanting more will get you there.
Yeah. I think the phrase is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. All right.
You
So
must
we're
have
in
it on
this
your
new.
wall.
Yeah. I had actually never heard it. I had
Wow.
I was coaching high school back in Kentucky about 10 years ago, and
Mhm.
a junior had it tattooed. Again, a junior in high school had a tattoo, but he had it tattooed on his arm. And I was like, man, that is brilliant. And that's
Mhm.
something that I stress to, everybody that I work with. It doesn't matter how
Mhm.
good you are if you don't work hard. 'Cause
Mhm.
somebody's going to pass you while you're just coasting.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, all right. In the new era of recruiting that we're in, it's shaped by the NIL, it's shaped by the transfer portal, like we talked about. Again, these things didn't exist. I'm glad the portal wasn't there when we were there,
Yes.
but I wish the NIL was.
You're right.
uh, but so as you're going through your recruiting and everything, what are some of the non-performance qualities that you look for when you're evaluating players?
I want a person who is themselves, that are comfortable being themselves. So whether it's, you know, energetic, whether it's out there personality, whether it's quiet, I want you comfortable being yourself. Because I think in a world today where we're always trying to be someone else, you're comfortable with being yourself, and we can build on the rest of that. We can build on those leadership qualities. We can build on, hey, quieting you down if you're too energetic. But when you come in here and you're trying to be someone else that you're not, you're never going to be your full potential of who God made you as a person. So I always look for that. Um, it's we talk about grit. I think that's huge. And to me, grit is wanting more for yourself, not just being comfortable with, hey, we got it, that's it, I'm done. I've done my job. Want to do more in your job, and you can see that when these young student athletes come, walk into the building. You can see that by the way they treat their parents, by the way they treat their brother and sister. Whether it's a younger sibling or an older sibling, and you can see that type of personality. The rest, football and sports can be definitely taught, and that's why I'm here as a coach to teach you to get better at those things. But just having good character is a huge thing these days.
And that's what I tell a lot of people is when you're in the recruiting process and
Mm-hmm.
there's a coach in the building, they're watching everything that you
Mm-hmm.
do. They're
Yep.
watching how do you respond to a referee if they make a call that you feel is a
Yes.
bad call? How do you respond when you get subbed out of the game? How do you respond when your team's getting blown out?
Mm-hmm.
These coaches nowadays are looking at everything because like you're gonna be around these people for 4 years more than likely,
Hopefully,
and
yeah.
do I want to be around somebody that's doing all of that stuff? No. So I don't even want to bring that guy in my program. And what they also got to look at is not only are you watching them, I know we talked about the social media side of, what they post and all that stuff, but you're also watching the parents because
Oh,
in
yeah.
most cases, those parents are coming along with that kid. They're going to
Yeah.
come to a game, they're going to do all this stuff. And, that parents don't realize how they can mess up an opportunity for their child.
I've definitely taken back two scholarships or not accepted a commitment because of the parents.
Hmm.
I've accepted a commitment that I was on the edge for because the parents were really good parents and it was a really good student athlete. And so, you know, as a player, we're always a reflection of our parents. And so you may can act like that, for a short amount of time, but that attitude character is definitely going to come out during that recruiting process. And it never failed. It never fails. And you don't even have to look hard. You'll see it. You'll see those tiny little things that make you question, like, wow, why did he do that? Or why did he answer his mom like that? And again, you don't always have to be yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. But, hey, show some type of respect so I know. And
Hmm.
that's learned from the parents. But again, these days you got kids raising kids. And so it's tough for these young men and women when you're clubbing with your mom in high school. So that's a whole different subject.
Yeah.
But it's hard, we when your parents are trying to be your friend. And we was always told my mom, I'm not your friend, you
Not at
know.
all.
And so there's a difference you can always tell. But yeah, we're looking at everything because I want to know. I want to know what type of person that I'm bringing into this program, as well as the parents. I don't want phone calls talking about why my son is not playing. I don't have time for that.
Hmm.
I don't have time. Well, and I do. I guess I do have time, but to teach your son, yes, sir, no, ma'am. That's taken away from the coaching that you should have done.
Hmm.
Back when they were growing up.
Yeah, no, there's a way to teach it in them. They'll be on them lines. They'll be doing leg
Oh
lifts.
yeah,
They'll be doing burpees. We'll teach it to you if I
we'll
have
teach it
to.
to you. Yeah, we'll teach it to you. It's just gonna cause him some pain and suffering. And now I'm the bad guy,
Yeah,
and now they want to transfer.
yeah. So
Most wounds are self-inflicted.
very much so. So,
Hmm.
all righty. So, like I said, you've had the opportunity to coach at a couple different schools. You've gone to high school level. You've been assistants, and now all the way up through the head coach. So you've made your way through a couple different stops. What are some of the lessons that you've learned from each stop that still show up in the way that you lead today?
I would say that started back from when I was at NIU. I mean, even some of the high school teams that I played on, those things follow you. Those lessons follow you. I can still hear in the back of my head Coach Novak saying, "Nothing good happens after midnight." You know, um,
Curfew.
and so you're right. And so you hear those things in the back of your head, but I think each school brought a different personalities from the HBCUs to the PWIs. I think there's a difference in the love of the campuses, the treatment of the players, but the hard lessons or even some of the softer lessons. You realize there's a different type of young man and woman at each of these different universities. And so I've been definitely blessed with the opportunity to, go from Illinois to Tennessee, Tennessee to Georgia, Georgia to Alabama, Alabama to North Carolina, North Carolina to Iowa, Iowa to Texas, and Texas back to Georgia. And so you getting all these kids from these young men and women from different backgrounds where you're getting to learn these lessons, and it helps you to maybe cultivate that next kid at this next stop because you've seen it before. You've seen the personality traits. You've seen, the way they were acting. And that helps you be a better coach. That helps you be a better mentor. That helps you be a better father. That helps you be a better husband. So all those lessons, whether they were good, bad, or ugly, helped me to be who I am today. And being able to teach my son what to do and what not to do. And hopefully he listens to his dad. Hopefully these players listen to experience because for some reason here at Fort Valley, they think I was only a head coach. I was born and I was a head coach. They don't realize that Coach Watson was in those streets back in the day, those types of things. And so, Coach, what you know about that? All right, man, don't forget I was your age, doing all these things that I shouldn't have been doing. But now that you get there, you try to tell them the best you can. And then the consequence or the outcome of that situation, now it's their choice to take that advice or not. And so these different spots that I've been at only added to that playbook that I talk about of winning. Whether it was a lesson from a head coach, whether it's the drive of the personality of a head coach, I think you take something from each of those spots, whether that's good or bad, and decide to use it right now here at Fort Valley.
Yeah. Again, it's all of that builds who we are, and that's the
Mhm.
same way we're raising our players.
Mhm.
We're going to teach them things that we've learned, and then it will be a trickle down effect as they get later on in their life. They'll be in the roles that we're in now, and we're hoping that some
Mhm.
of the lessons that we give them, they pass on to the next generations. And again, that's the whole concept of this podcast. We want to be able to share these stories so that somebody else can get it, and then it can continue to grow and be passed on.
Mhm. Yeah, and I tell my players, and I stole this from Coach Lawson, who's the head women's basketball coach at Duke. She said, "Life doesn't get any easier. You just learn how to deal with harder, better."
Hmm.
And that was the perfect analogy. I'm like, wow, you are right. You got enough stuff that went wrong in your life that you able to handle that a little bit easier. But life is always going to be hard. It doesn't just get easier when you move up from high school to college, or when you're at college, you're a starter. Too much is given, much is required. And so it only gets harder from there. And I tell my players, once we get to that next step, now I'm going to expect more out of you. And
Mhm.
so you just learn to handle hard better. And I've been using that probably for the last 6, 7, 8 months to my players.
Yeah.
Once I see that it's getting a little bit easier for you, I'm turning up the heat. I'm turning up the heat. And that's going to make us a better, that's going to make you a better player, which is in turn going to make us a better football program.
Yeah. And this is something that I literally I heard this last night and it stuck with me. And it just and it's what you're saying exactly. I'm gonna make sure I want to make sure I get it right. If I raise the bar,
Mhm.
the weak people will leave.
Oh,
But if I
yes.
lower the bar, the good people will leave, right? Because
Oh,
they're not being
I like that.
challenged.
I like
So
that.
it's that once it starts to become easy, I need to expect more from you because you're getting better.
Mhm.
And that's what they got to understand, that like this is not a bad thing. This is me responding to what the coach wants me to do, and ultimately I'm getting better. So
I'm still in that one, and I'm using it.
I'm gonna send it to you because
Yeah, I
I
appreciate
the
that. That's
guy
good.
I just found it last night and I was like, man, this makes so much sense, and I think
That's
people need to
good.
hear that. So I'm
That's
glad
good.
you gave me an opportunity to slide it in here. All right. So again, that was just kind of the ultimate, all the topics that I know I said I wanted to discuss with you, but I want to pick it up a little bit, right? So this is
Mhm.
just kind of what I call my quick hitters. So I'm
Okay.
going to give you a couple of like this or that. So one to choose from. Tell me your first instinct. I may give you an open-ended question. Tell me the first thing that comes to mind. No wrong answer. Just want to get your thoughts, kind of reaction in the moment. The only rule I have is if I give you a this or that, you just can't say both. So you got to pick one, even if it's hard. You don't have to explain it, but you just got to pick one. All right.
You saw I leaned in a little bit for this
I
one.
know. I saw you got to look close to the camera.
I got to plant my feet on the ground. I got to
Yeah.
be ready for this.
All right. So tell me your best personal football moment.
Getting the head coaching job here.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Now, since you talked about it, biggest value of coaching at an HBCU.
Getting to teach the African American male. We're an endangered species,
Hmm.
and so getting to teach them to how this life works, really works, and being open and candid with them is huge. And hoping that you can change a life, just like you're doing with these podcasts. But I'm not trying to change everybody's life, but if I can reach one at every single institution I've at, I've done my job.
Yeah, and I know you'll agree with this. You talked about it being at HBCU. We are inclusive. So it's
Mhm.
if a non-African American wants to come to Fort Valley State, hey, we are willing to teach you as well, right?
Absolutely. Come
Yeah,
on in, man.
yeah,
I am inclusive. I love everybody, man. That's one
there you
thing
go.
about me, man. Red, green, blue, it don't
Don't matter.
matter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, all right. As a coach, do you find more value in watching film on your team or your opponent's team?
My team,
All right.
always my team, because I can control what I can control. I can't control what they're doing over on the other side, the opponent, but over here, I can definitely make some changes in that way that can take us from zero to hero.
All right. So you talk about it. Analytics, or do you want to go with your gut instinct?
It's always going to be a gut instinct. Once you've been around this game and life long enough, it's always going to be that gut instinct where it's going to help you. Not saying that analytics doesn't help in some areas, but as a coach, you've been in it long enough and you've seen it play out 1 million times.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go with the gut feeling.
All righty. All right. So again, you're at an HBCU homecoming game or the rivalry game.
Ooh, ooh, the rivalry, the rivalry. Yeah.
All right. Huddle or no huddle?
We're saying football huddle because
Football. Yeah.
football,
Yeah.
no
No.
huddle.
Are we getting in the huddle? Or are we just going to air it
No,
out?
calling it from
No
the
huddle.
sideline.
All right. Big hit or a sack?
Big hit.
All
I'm a
right.
linebacker, man.
Fumble or interception?
Interception.
All right. And now I'm going to track this one this year.
Mhm.
Fourth and what? And you're always going for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
4th and 2.
Fourth and two. And we're always going
Always.
for it.
Always going for it.
Does the yard line matter?
It does.
On the plus
But
side, at
but
least?
but yeah, that always matters. But 4th and 2, I have confidence. I wouldn't have said this last year. This year, 4th and 2. This year, 4th and 2, I'm going for it. No,
Yeah.
pretty much wherever we are.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Have you seen the Coach Prime show and the Mike Vick Experience?
I haven't seen the Mike Vick Experience, but saw Coach Prime show.
All right. So how do we get you a show? You're at an HBCU. BET's got to. How do we get BET to call you?
We got to win, man.
Got to
We
win.
got to
All right.
win. They got to have a product to sell, and so people love winners, and people hate winners too. So we got to win first.
I will say, I did watch the Coach Vick Experience. They went 1-11.
Hmm.
So
But that was just off Coach Vick's name.
yeah, I
We'll
know.
see if that experience is there this year.
All right. It's like I said, I just wanted to kind of pick your brain, kind of put you on the spot a little bit, get you, like I said, get your scoot a little closer to the camera. So, all right. So, again, as I'm doing this, this is not a project I'm able to do by myself. So I do work with several great sponsors. So today's episode is proudly sponsored by the Eric W. Jenkins Memorial Foundation. The Eric W. Jenkins Memorial Foundation was created with a powerful mission to help fund cancer research and support ongoing fight to find a cure. Through community support, fundraising efforts, and partnership with organizations dedicated to medical advancement, the foundation works to bring hope to individuals, families impacted by cancer. Cancer has touched the lives of so many, and organizations like the Eric W. Jenkins Memorial Foundation are committed to turning loss into purpose by helping move research forward and supporting scientists and programs working every day toward life-saving breakthroughs. Their mission is simple but meaningful: to honor Eric's legacy by making a lasting impact into the fight against cancer and helping create a future where fewer families have to experience this effect. If you'd like to learn more about it, please visit Eric W. Jenkins Memorial Foundation and support their efforts and find out how you can get involved. The Eric W. Jenkins Memorial Foundation is honoring a legacy and helping fund the fight for a cure. All right, so Marlon, I appreciate you again. Like I said, I wanted to come on here again. This podcast gives me an opportunity to catch up with people from a long time ago. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on here and just kind of share some of the stories. You took me back to my Ross Hall days. You know, you made me say
You took
names
me
like,
back, man. And then I'm not used to hearing my name either.
yeah,
So when you say I'm so used to hearing coach.
yeah.
And so when you say it, I'm like, all right, who is that?
Yeah, so I got to say names like Nathan Bloom, and we talked about Joe, and again the 3 o'clock in the morning fire alarm. So
Hmm.
ultimately, again, I appreciate you doing this. I think again the lessons and stories that you talked about. Again, there's somebody somewhere experiencing some of these same things, and I'm just hoping that these words get to them and help them kind of get through that and everything. So whenever I do this, I do like to give my guests an opportunity to just kind of talk a little bit about, what they have going on. If you guys have a spring game coming up or you got your schedule out next year, when your homecoming is, because I know HBCU homecomings are something different, even though you chose the rivalry game. but no, anything you want to shout out, man. If you want to shout out the school, the website, any social media, or anything, man, please do. The floor is yours.
Absolutely, man. I'm again, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. It was a wonderful catching up, and the stories, like you said, were wonderful. But I really don't have anything to say. If you knew me, I'm truly a humble person, and so if anyone needs some help with anything, just feel free to look me up. I am at Fort Valley State University down in Georgia, Fort Valley, Georgia. So if you need anything, or if this podcast has helped you, or you need some help with anything, just feel free to email me or give me a call. I'm very open and honest when I have time to get back to you. But again, I appreciate this platform, and look out for Fort Valley State University football next year in 2026.
Yeah, you got an opening date yet?
Yeah, it is August 29th. We're playing Elizabeth City State University, and then homecoming is October 24th versus Lane College.
There you go. Go out and support. Again, man, I appreciate you. I'll be supporting you. I'll be watching you. I've got
Yeah.
family in Elizabeth City, so when I saw that you were in Carolina, I was like, all right, I know those grounds, but glad to see you in Fort Valley now. I do ride past Fort Valley. Unfortunately, my kids play AAU, and we have to travel sometimes. We go to Atlanta, but we also go to Alabama, and
Mhm.
yeah, I pass by the signs for Fort Valley State. So again,
Okay.
I appreciate you doing this. To the audience, I appreciate you taking a few minutes to just kind of listen to a couple of guys catch up and just kind of share some old stories from, I guess, what you all would consider the black and white days, pre-social
Mhm.
media. So again, if you anything that you saw from this that you liked, please give us a like and subscribe. That's how we continue to grow this platform and get our message out. Or if you know somebody who you think a story that you heard today will help them, or you know somebody who likes storytelling or sports, we ask you forward this over to them. Again, that our ultimate goal is to get these stories and messages to everybody who needs to hear them. Beyond the Game, more stories is available wherever you get your content. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere that you can get content. We have it there for you. But additional information is available on our website, www.btgms.com. You can go there. Again, we have all our latest episodes, our contact information, our official merchandise, everything like that. But in the meantime, again, we appreciate you taking the time with us. Coach Watson, I appreciate you for
There
taking
we
the time
go.
to do this. And I look forward to continuing to follow you. And, let's stay in contact now, man. It shouldn't be another quarter of a century. And again, we're going to work to get you your TV show. All right.
Absolutely,
There you
man.
go.
You're gonna be on it first.
All right, I appreciate you. So, all
All
right,
right.
everybody else, until then, we appreciate you. Take this opportunity to just thank you all again. But remember, the games will come to an end, but these stories and lessons will live beyond the game.